So this last week, I played Weird West. It's a new game from Rafael Antonio, founder of Arkane Studios, and creative director of Prey, the greatest immersive sim ever made. And well, I think he might have just done it again. I want to start by saying I don't like this game as much as Prey. You see, Prey is my second favorite game of all time, and when the creative director announced he left Arkane to found a new studio, I was curious what their first project would look like. To me, Prey was literally the best immersive sim game ever made, and also had the single greatest DLC of all time, Moon Crash, the better version of Deathloop before Deathloop was even a thing. So my expectations going into this game were high, and in many ways it met them, but in a lot of cases it fell short too. Weird West starts with you being held captive in a mysterious room, surrounded by 5 silhouettes of characters you play as in your adventure. You begin as the first, a mother who has just lost her child to a horrific shooting from Stillwater bandits outside. Apparently not that horrific though, because in T-3 seconds, this boss bitch gets through the entire mourning process and is ready to start adventuring. Respect, Jane, respect. You stumble outside, grab your gun, and head out into the open world. And when I say open world, I mean it in a very loose sense. You see, in Weird West, you simply travel between a set of instance zones, and each time you do so, it takes up real game time in the world as you watch your character move across the landscape, each time with the potential to stumble upon random encounters, like wildlife and crazy witch ladies casting incantations. But this quickly led into my first big concern with the game: the combat. The shooting in this game feels great. The shots are weighty, blood flies everywhere when you connect, and the animations are great. However, trying to aim these guns feels like using a massive crane to pull a needle out of a haystack. The auto-aim control is horrible, which means you're constantly struggling to even stay on target. I can't tell you how many times I died in encounters, not because they were challenging or I got outsmarted by the AI, but simply because I couldn't control the slow and unwieldy reticle to remain on target I wanted to hit, instead constantly over and undershooting. This left a really sour taste in my mouth right at the start of the game. Hell, how can you fall in love with something when you can barely even play it? And a lot of other things were concerning too. All the early zones felt super samey and very bare bones in their layout. The level design couldn't be more boring. Lots of times I would enter a tavern, try to pick up items on a table, only to struggle to actually aim my character in the pixel-perfect direction to do so. The game was obviously built with it playing on a keyboard and mouse in mind, but in this instance, I wanted to play on my Xbox, and the game was much worse for it. So then why do I still really enjoy this game, even with all these minor faults? You see, the thing is, Weird West gets a lot of simple things wrong, like basic aiming, but there are so many interesting and deep, intersecting mechanics that unravel as you play, that over time the complexity of intrigue starts to remedy that anger you have for all the base mechanics. Let me give you an example. An early mission in the game asks that you find your way into a local gang-controlled territory. To steal some documents you need to find about your kidnapped husband, who, by the way, was taken at the beginning of the game. I figured you wouldn't care since our protagonist didn't mind that her daughter had died right at the start. So when you get to the town, you are simply tasked with figuring out a way to get what you want. I didn't know where to start, so I struck up a conversation with the girl standing next to me. I mentioned my husband, and she said she had some information that could help, for a price. You see, this is the part where most rational game players would whip out the repeater and massacre the entire town. But being the baby back bitch I am, I instead paid her for the info. She mentioned talking to the local clerk, and so I did. He told me to meet him at a secluded spot away from the authorities. And there he gave me whiskey laced with a sleep serum, and told me to give it to the guard at the front of the building I needed to get into. And so I gave it to the guard, watched him hit the pavement, and baby, I was in. But to my dismay, though the building was heavily guarded, and because I suck so much at video games, I kept failing to get past the guards without getting blasted first at this part. So I hatched a new plan. I noticed a building to the side of where I needed to get into that I thought I could climb up to, and lo and behold, I could. I grabbed nearby barrels and haystacks and stacked them all on top of each other in a row so I could slowly climb to the top. And once I had enough height, I was able to simply jump onto the roof of the building I originally was trying to break into. Boom. I had now tried multiple ways of getting into this area and failed, and finally found one that stuck. And you see, this is what makes Weird West so great, and what also made Rafael Antonio's previous work so memorable. Each situation you are presented with provides so much freedom. Each encounter is much more of a sandbox, where you discover your own way to tackle issues, rather than a predefined story with basic and certain beats that must be hit. I could have thrown a rock at the back door to distract the guards. I could have gone in guns blazing and never even have given it a second thought. I could have started a fire with explosives to cause the town to go into a panic. When you realize how much freedom this game gives you is when you realize how great it is and it starts to click. And even more amazingly, it's how the game reacts to your decisions that make it all the more interesting. So for example, had I gone in guns blazing, I would have potentially killed a lot of innocent civilians. That means my reputation would have plummeted, which means my new followers might not try to join the group. Some that were following me may leave in disgust of my actions. Towns may charge more money for goods, depending on if they like me. And now, in my adventures, at any time, I may get jumped and attacked from family members that are seeking revenge for those that I killed. It's how these systems in Weird West interact with one another that make the experience so fun after you give it a few hours. There are tons of opportunities to save people who will help you later on, to disavow others who will hunt you down and disdain hours in the future. But what really solidified how much I like the systems in this game is when I finally made it to the second player you play as in the game, the Pigman. When I first started playing as a Pigman, I thought it was simply a whole different campaign in the same universe, with a character with all new skills. Instead, though, not only did my character have his own unique skills, but also he had taken on the passives of the previous character I built. And even more crazily, the previous character I had built was still in the game. All the past decisions I had made, all the people I had killed, and all those I had saved were still there, in the same world, same towns, everything, including my own previous character, who I had got to then go meet as the Pigman, and she was there. These are the types of interesting game design choices that made Arkane great in the first place, and it's what made me start falling in love with this game too. The idea that everything I do on all 5 of these unique characters I play can drastically affect the game. And I didn't even mention that you can kill any of these characters at any time. And yes, including the main story ones, altering how you have to complete the story completely. This means what on the surface is a fairly straightforward and sometimes janky indie game becomes so much more because of how interactable the world is. On top of this, the world has a strict adherence to time, and time matters. You see, most quests and bounties in this game expire after a set period if you don't complete them, meaning every bit of time you spend walking between zones, resting, and doing other missions is time you are taking away from another potential thing you could do. And I used to think this was super annoying in games, being forced to be on a timer and complete things before they disappear or go into a fail state. But after playing Prey Mooncrash, and now Weird West, it's pretty clear to me how amazing a meaningful time limit can be in a game as long as it still provides the player ample freedom. This meant while playing the game, I was constantly asking myself, where should I go? How do I tackle this problem? Will killing this person cause issues later, or will not killing them cause even more? In fact, this principle of game design is carried through everywhere in this game. See a locked door? Why not blow it up with dynamite? But then you may be out of explosives when you need them later. See oil spewed across the ground? Why not shoot it and cause a blazing fire? Why not fill an empty barrel with oil, walk it over to a group of enemies, throw it at them, and then shoot it in midair and watch the fireworks explode? It's the way the game respects its players' agency in gameplay, decision-making, and how the story unfolds that make this such a compelling experience. So in summary, I really did love my time with Weird West. It's a type of thoughtful game design and player agency that needs to be the cornerstone of this industry. It's what makes games special as opposed to movies and books. But there were a ton of issues too. The gameplay needs to be more tight, especially on controllers. The environments were super vanilla, and constantly going back to the same area over and over to kill a new bandit leader who acted the exact same as the last ones got old really quickly. The UI felt great and snappy, and it was good looking, but I wish those passive abilities had some more interesting interactions than just my lockpicks break less now. But nonetheless, Weird West did manage to capture that essence of immersive sims and game design that I love so much. It is in no ways a masterpiece like Prey was, but it does provide an interesting experience many games don't nowadays. But for being a studio's first game, hats off to the developers. You guys did a great job. You made a game in a genre I hate, that being westerns, and actually managed to make me like it. And regardless of the countless issues that crop up in this game, the visions you have here is something that could spawn into the birth of a studio that could make some truly amazing pieces of art, just like Arkane. Weird West is a very ambitious indie game, well executed, but with many flaws and so many improvements and deeper systems that could be added on top of it. The magic at its core is there though, of a studio just beginning to spread its wings. Of a game that will be forgotten for now by many, but with the potential new WolfEye games in the future, will be looked back on as the start of something much, much greater.